Right, I'm Gordon Ramsay, and my last meal would be a full English breakfast, butter chicken, chicken wings, and an In-N-Out burger. Beef Wellington with a delicious Monkey 47 gin and tonic. And then finally, a delicious sticky toffee pudding, deep-fried Mars bar for dessert.
Every person has exactly two things in common. We all gotta eat and we're all gonna die. Today we're joined by world-renowned chef, television icon, recipient of 17 Michelin stars, and YouTube's most controversial grilled cheese maker, Gordon Ramsay. Welcome to the show.
You had to get that one in the end, didn't you?
Listen, you are one of the most successful chefs of all time, one of the most successful people of all time, and you still got punk kids like me taking the piss out of a single grilled cheese you made, and I apologize officially for that.
Yeah, you're like a sort of seventh kid I didn't know I had. Because you just come back and constantly irritate me. Mm-hmm. And rightly so with that grilled cheese. I'm not going to explain the issues, but I was in the arse end of nowhere. I was up against it at the time. And those little moments, would you believe, we do in our downtime. But I will admit it, live for the first time with you personally, it wasn't good enough.
Everybody, that's emotional growth. Can we give it up for Gordon on that?
I'm going to blame Justin Mandel. Justin Mandel was supposed to be our sort of amazing social media, hot producing talent. And man, he said, it looks good. And then when those comments started coming, I'm saying, he said, yeah, dive for cover, hide quickly.
Hey man, sometimes the dish just gotta go out. Also, if I'm your seventh kid, I didn't receive a Christmas present this year, but that's totally fine. We got next year.
It's coming.
All right, we are eating your last meal today. Is that something you've thought about before?
Joe, not really. I'm not a good person to sort of start talking about morbid death. And every time I've gone to see grandparents and uncles and aunts that are on their sort of deathbed, God forbid, this meal's always served through a bloody tube. So. Yeah. I get asked this question multiple times. You're the first person I've actually sat down and spoken about. So I would like to celebrate my last meal a couple of years before I die.
That's a much smarter option.
Just to sort of, have a look at what the party's gonna run like. Who's getting inebriated, who's good, who's bad, who's slagging me off, who's talking well. And also I think when it does finally happen, it's going to be a massive celebration.
I hope I get an invite to that, even though I didn't get one to the Christmas party.
It's coming.
Gordon, for your first course, we have a full English breakfast. We have your own soft scrambled eggs with some fresh white winter truffle, 'tis the season, roasted cherry tomatoes, fried bread, a hash brown or potato rosti as you might call it, back bacon, bangers, blood sausage. Enjoy.
Man, I'm like a pig in shit right now.
You and me both.
Honestly, I swear to God.
Just two pigs swimming around in shit.
Man, first of all, my mum would kill me if she saw me putting white truffle on my scrambled eggs. She would kick my ass. Let's get that absolutely clear. I grew up in a council estate. I'm not too sure what the reference is in the US.
I just got like government housing, yeah.
Government housing, and scrambled eggs was a dream. And so this reminiscence right back, to sort of 5-6 years of age, and you just woke up with the smell of bacon. Mum would bake bread. The thought of, $250 a kilo white truffles on my scrambled egg, man, she would kick my ass. So I'm gonna tuck in.
Your mom ain't here right now, it's just us, man.
Yeah, delicious, thank you. That looks good. This is the Scottish diet, by the way. Okay? This is something that every time I go home to Scotland, I always get into a greasy spoon little cafe. And it's a sort of happy and a sad ending because it takes me back. But the last breakfast I had in Scotland was with my father. And it was sadly the last time before he died. Wow. But we just sat there eating an amazing full English breakfast.
You grew up in council estates, you grew up desperately poor. Your dad, for a large part of your life, was abusive and a deadbeat, and your mom tried her best to provide. You seem like you found salvation through sports, through football. What lessons about mental toughness did you learn from that you took into the cooking world?
Yeah, that's a good question. I think that level of resilience, when you just don't have a choice to go back, you need to go forward. So that additional drive is self-motivating. You dig deep and find gears that you felt you never had. I had the added pressure of having a younger brother, 15 months apart, that was sadly getting into drugs. So that was a moment that I was reflecting, here's the flip side of this. Yeah. If you don't get your shit together, you could be, like your father and turn out like your kid brother. So you take that negativity and you use that, area, a moment in your life to springboard, to get the hell out of there. And that sport connects, driving the team, captaining the team, being super on it, self-motivated. really plays well, especially when you're running a business.
No, absolutely.
You got to establish a leader. And I've always been a firm believer in dusting yourself down. So what is it? What's the problem? And come back to me with a solution.
One of the chefs that really took me under his wing, Chris Morningstar, I hope you're watching this, buddy, but he refused to hire kids from culinary school, only hired athletes. I mean, his CDC was a fullback at UCLA. His sous chef, now Food and Wine Best New Chef, was a softball player because he was like, athletes understand hierarchy, they understand what it means to be uncomfortable, and they understand how to get through those situations with solutions.
Today, you fast track, 25 years later, just the power of a chef today, both male and female, they are built like athletes, marketing tools. Peak of their game, physical fitness. And I think chefs down the line will end up being like sports players. They'll be traded, they'll be bought, they'll be signed, because that's the way it's going, and that's what they deserve.
No, absolutely. I want to talk real quick about your brother. You mentioned that he was younger than you, ended up being a heroin addict, living on the streets. You and him obviously grew up in roughly the same environment.
Yeah.
Do you think it's nature, nurture, pure spirit of will that you ended up a titan of industry and he ended up on the streets?
Combination of both.
Yeah.
I think when you favor a child within a family, he was my father's blue-eyed boy. And then when that letdown takes place, the ramification on his shoulders was devastating. So Dad and him fell out. He tried to get into the army. He got caught stealing. So he never progressed into those first rounds of that training. I think when you favor someone, and I always get asked, you got 6 kids, who's your favorite? It depends who I'm with. Because we have our moments across that 12-month period where we get quality time together, one-on-one. But you should never single one out in a large family and saying, that's my favorite, because it could come back to bite you on the ass.
Where do I rank in terms of your favorite children?
You right now have just put one foot on the ladder because the truffles in the scrambled egg. This is delicious, by the way. Seriously.
Thank you. I was going to say, don't critique our food like you did with the hot ones wings, man. You tore them apart.
Those wings were shit. And that was like sucking on my granddad's toenails. They were that bad. Sean knew they were bad. Okay, and when you got a sauce like that and masking that dried chicken, I said next time round, I'll supply the wings.
Well, hey, speaking of wings, we got course number 2 coming up. All right, Gordon, for course number 2, we have butter chicken, we have garlic naan, we have basmati rice, we also have an In-N-Out double-double animal style, of course, and then we have some buffalo chicken wings. These have been wet brined overnight, a light flour dust, and then fried at 375 till crispy and juicy and way better than hot ones.
Bloody amazing. I mean, seriously, honestly, this is just a heaven. I mean, even though I didn't want to talk about my sort of funeral, now you give me an idea of a perfect menu, but I want to be there, as opposed to being laid in a box that I can't talk to anyone. So that's why we should do a rehearsal a year before.
I kind of feel like you're never gonna die though. I feel like you've been training your whole life to just one day meet death and tell him to go himself.
I've been close, you know.
Yeah?
That? Yeah, we've been knocking on death's door a few times. I get a little bit narky with the shiny floor stuff. I got to get back to the reality of how I started and those firm reminders of what it's like being back at the coalface. So I need to go off piste. Yeah. And jumping out of a helicopter in the middle of the Amazon, Guyana, rappelling down a waterfall of 300 foot, and out hunting giant caiman at night to eat and sauce, and diving with great white sharks. There's always that moment that I just love that moment, but you do have that oh shit moment as well at the same time. God, this could have gone so horribly wrong.
Hey, it's a memento mori. Remind yourself of death. Remind yourself of life. Please dig in. Yeah. I'll eat wherever you eat.
I'm going to start with the burger because these guys are incredible. Mm-hmm. The fact that everything's sourced locally, they stay within California. It's a perfect drive-through. You don't get any hassle. Mm-hmm. I bring the window down. I give them a little $100 bill as a big thank you, and I pick up my double-double. Heaven.
Truly, it's the best burger. I grew up eating this.
Oh, God. Bloody hell.
I mean, this is like delivered to set. I mean, this is obviously 20 minutes, half an hour old, but like it's still so good.
It's amazing. And also, I took them as an inspiration. When I opened our first burger store in Vegas, everyone said, you'll never work. And so how do we come up with the difference? How do we stand out from the crowd? So I used the banquet suite downstairs for about 9 months. I had all these little miniature barbecues. I started doing the blend with the chuck and rib. And then the secret and the turning point for me is when I started basting these burgers in Devonshire butter. And our Devonshire cows are full of fat, and the grass and what they graze is just incredible.
Is it that dark yellow butter?
Yeah, really. But when it caramelizes, Josh, over those coals, the flavor was just like this perfect Bon Noisette. And that was what set our burgers apart in Vegas. And so still to this day, they're brushed with this beautiful Devonshire butter. Yeah, incredible.
In and out, they're brushing these with mustard on the animal style.
God, that's so good.
Tell me about the fish head curry that you ate with the Indian dishwashers in your first restaurant job when you were a teen.
That got me to where I am today. And those moments in life when I'm sat with a bunch of amazing Pakistani men that were incredible kitchen porters. Night chef failed to turn up. I was last in, so I was first to be called. I was absolutely screwed. 3:30 in the morning, I was just coming to like the sort of 21st hour, 4 hours to go, set all the trays up for breakfast. And the two guys, grabbed me by the t-shirt and said, "Hey, you've got to come and eat." I said, "No, I can't eat this time in the morning." I could smell this amazing curry coming from the South Canteen. Went in there, lights were down. There was water in plastic beakers in these bright orange cups. And then they just handed me this incredible salmon head fish curry. I kid you not, it was a turning point because I just could not believe I'm cooking in this 5-star hotel. The food is shit. And now with these kitchen porters, they've just given me one of the most flavoursome curries. It was that moment. I was respectful, then wanted to start working more nights after that. But when I left that shift, I'd picked up a catering magazine, one of our trade mags, and on the cover was Marco Pierre White. And still to this day, every time someone mentions curry, and even to understand how to make one properly, I had a respect for the guys that really took care of me. I went to India. And whilst we were filming it for the TV, but the real reason was to pay respect to those kitchen porters that made that salmon head fish curry. Because that was a break that I never saw coming. And I seized the moment, left at 8 o'clock in the morning, ran over to the train station, jumped on the shuttle, got to Marco about 9:30 and told him that I'd just finished an all-nighter and I want to work for you.
Incredible, man. Well, please dig into our butter chicken curry a la Burbank.
Oh my God, amazing. And the secret about this is the butter chicken is the tomato gravy. It's fragrant, it's got a nice sense of garam masala, and it's not too rich. Oh my God.
I love that you talk about actually learning Indian technique because so many, especially fine dining chefs who have all the Michelin stars, they talk about, I cook Thai flavors with French technique. Everything ends in with French technique, but to me, Indian technique, making the tadka, like scorching the spices with the hot oil, it's so unique and so endemic to why the cuisine's so good.
Yeah, but also there's part medicinal in terms of how they grew up. After coming out of Rajasthan, I went down to Kerala and I spent 10 days in an ashram, and I thought I understood vegetarian cuisine, but oh my God, the local villages sent their kids to schooling there. And so the discipline with these 8, 9, 10-year-old kids and the way they were cooking was incredible. That's what I need to do, Josh. And even though everyone thinks, you're at the top, why are you doing this? No, I need to continue adding chapters and I can't let go, especially the learning technique. So there's something quite nice about being schooled, but also you have to have the humility to be downbeaten because it's easy at the top.
Do you think you're sort of, eat a chicken wing, I'll ask uncomfortable questions later. Do you think you're sort of addicted to being downbeaten in that way? Because I mean, you grew up, sports tends to be a pretty abusive world. Kitchens tend to be a pretty abusive world, I guess, depending on your definition of motivation versus abuse. But you had a line in your book, Humble Pie, 2007, that said, with my dad, the abuse had no point, but with Marco Pierre White, the more he screwed you, the better you became. To you, what's the difference between motivation and abuse in that way?
Yeah, it really depends on how you are and how you perceive that individually. I think there's always something incredibly positive to come out of something wrong. And so being on my ass in life and having that sort of daunting, thought, shit, can I get out of this council estate? Can I get away from my dad? Can I better my life? Can I make a better life for my family one day? I didn't even think about it because right then you're selfish, you're focused, and so you're driven. And so whether you're on a basketball court playing for the Lakers or in a Super Bowl or in a top flight kitchen, the price to pay for that knowledge is ruthless. And the training ground before you get to those big moments is horrific. And so you have to be prepared to take the consequences. And with Marco, I took the consequences. But I never complained about that. And all that bullshit about he made me cry, we still laugh about it now in terms of, and I told him on many occasions, Marco, stop dining out on that one. And people ask, what was he really like? The guy was a genius. The guy was an absolute freaking genius. 19 years of age when I stood by his side. And so
he was only, 25, 26 at that time?
6 years older than me, 25.
God, that's like a horse walking a dog. It's incredible.
Crazy. They are delicious.
Thank you. You've also said that the restaurant industry has lost too many chefs to addiction, suicide, depression. Those are all things that are called diseases of despair. And one of your chefs, David Dempsey, also suffered that fate. What is it about restaurants that uniquely foster those problems? And also, how do we fix it?
Yeah, God, that's a tough question. First of all, you're never going to fix that overnight.
Sure.
I think the frustrating part is a bit like sport. Everyone thinks it's a cool image and it's a rock and roll image, but it's not. It's a trained, mentally, physically adapted, mindset. And so those that can't get there think that some controlled substance will help you get there. If you turned around and said to me the night, we had dinner at Harvey Nichols, the night he died, I'd never believed you, because this guy was just so hyped and energetic and excited. And I started to realize, that he had issues, but nowhere near of that magnitude. And so it's not a rock and roll lifestyle. It's a complete controlled, disciplined environment. And we spoke earlier about the discipline of chefs today. It's on par with athletes. And so a lot of individuals think that you need that substance because it's rock and roll to stay at that level. It's absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
It's the worst. And that's the downside to the industry, because when they're not making it, and they get depressed and they get mentally scarred because they haven't achieved what they set out to. No one's managing their expectations.
Yeah.
And so you can't dream of playing in the Premier League unless you're good enough to be in there. It's the same as cooking. You can't dream of cooking at 3-star unless you're cut out for that. And I think the sad thing is there's no fast track. You don't get catapulted overnight. There's no such thing in any success. And so it's rife in the industry, and that's what led me to make that documentary and going to Honduras, Colombia, and then making that shit and 3-star Michelin cocaine was just a real eye-opener and scary.
Yeah.
I mean, literally, because it was petrifying to how easy we made it and to how quick we got it, and then to see 37.5 tons of it entering the UK.
Unreal.
And I lose a chef because he's taking a couple of grams after we had dinner. Mortifying.
It was interesting. You said that one of the reasons people get depressed in kitchens and turn to substances like that is because simply they haven't made it, they haven't achieved. Do you have any regrets with the way that you have acted, say going back to the Boiling Point documentary, about the way that you've acted in high pressure situations?
No, not at all. No regrets. Have I handled kitchens completely different? Yeah, of course I have. I got trained like that.
Yeah.
So certainly not playing the victim. Didn't know any better.
Of course.
Certainly couldn't never run a business. But boy, could I cook my ass off. And the biggest thing I ever did when I won my 3rd Michelin star was I stood back, reflect, review, divide and conquer, hand the reins over. You look at people like Alain Ducasse and sadly the late Joe Robuchon. They've got 4 3-star restaurants. They haven't been anywhere near them for the last 10 years.
Yeah.
And so I go back to those days in Robuchon's kitchen, and I thought Marco was tough. This guy was an absolute nutbag. And if it wasn't copper pans, it was plates. And the kitchen was a bit like this. We were all behind this line. There was 12 of us stuck behind there. And then opposite the hot plate, it was this toilet. And I was bursting for a pee about 9:30. I hadn't sent the last table. And there was a key on the pass. And so I grabbed the key, ran into the toilet and came out. And I got absolutely pummeled because it was the toilet for Michel Robuchon and no staff were allowed to piss in there. And so I didn't quite believe how sort of weird that was, that the cooks need to pee, but we had to go outside down the hallway. I thought I was just being super quick, but man, I got the biggest bollock in my entire life. And so at the time you didn't think much of it, but it's not till you reflect later on in life, you think, Jesus Christ, I'm getting screamed at because I pissed in the toilet. I didn't shit on the side and not wipe my ass. I left in toilet paper, sprayed the aerosol can, and so I did everything right. But and so are those kitchens changing dramatically? Is it the same in every 3-star? They're all different.
Yeah.
And they have different ways of getting the best out of you.
From Marco to you, down to people like Claire Smith. Hopefully with each successive generation, it gets easier for those below you.
But I mean, studying the sort of methods of the CIA and just how these culinary schools work over here is depressing. Because these kids go into these culinary schools, they get sandbagged with 50, 60, sometimes $150,000, $200,000 loans. They come out after 2 or 3 years. They can't take a job that they want to learn.
Yeah.
They have to take a job to pay and rid the debts. And so their career is sandbagged. And that's frustrating. So we have to turn that on its head. And these kids should be coming out of that 3, 6 month, 9 training schemes into businesses for their career, not to downgrade their loans, because it's detrimental. It's counterintuitive to the future of the industry.
I mean, for as many people as complain about your rough edges on TV, yelling at bullshit restaurant owners, you seem like you care so deeply about, one, the people in the industry succeeding, and then two, the industry as a whole, and I deeply admire that.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Because Kitchen Nightmares is a tough love scenario, and I'm screwed either way. When they're successful and you relaunch, you don't get praise. When they close and fail, you get blamed.
Yeah.
But let's not forget, they asked me in. And behind me, I've never ignored it, but I've got an amazing culinary team. There's a great art team. There's shit-hot producers that really know their stuff. And we've done our homework before we get there. I get in there, I have to eat shit food. I'm telling them truthfully, and they're looking at me like they're a bit, wow, how can you be so rude? No, that's not rude. I'm being honest with you. Get your shit together.
And you can't save everyone.
I try so hard.
Yeah.
I literally try so hard. I've been accused of carrying mice in my pocket, to sticking a mouse in.
That's what that was? I thought you were just happy to see me.
No. But and then all sorts, accused of fire alarms being set. I mean, the shit we get from that show. I walk away and I'm like, get the Pepto-Bismol out. Start working on the stomach ulcers quickly.
Ready for course number 3?
There's more food.
Oh, there's so much more.
Jesus Christ! This is not a funeral. This is a feast.
Gordon, for course number 3, we have your beef Wellington. We cooked it exactly to your specifications. We have a tenderloin cooked to medium rare, surrounded by mushroom duxelle, wrapped in prosciutto, wrapped in a chive crepe, and then wrapped in glazed puff pastry, a little bit of flake salt and thyme on top, and of course a red wine demi on the side. Then we have your Monkey 47 gin and tonic made with Mediterranean tonic water and a fresh lime wheel.
Mate, it looks majestic.
Thank you so
I
much.
mean, honestly, this thing lost its way back in the 90s. And so when we first opened Claridge's, early 2000, I wanted to sort of be a little bit more sort of disruptive with the retro. And I'm fed up with that old fart mentality that nothing should change. Our job was to change it. And so this thing imploded. I remember the general manager turning around saying, you got a £21 lunch menu. You're degrading the hotel. It's too cheap. And I said, no, we're filling the hotel. This place is a ghost town. We're filling it. And this was on the menu, and it was absolutely flying out. And now it's a Wellington sensation. I mean, the amount of shit that I get on my phone with Wellingtons, some of them look like my granddad's slippers, some of them look like the inside of my granddad's underpants, but the other ones look beautiful. And this, I can tell you now, looks stunning.
I give all credit to Trevor. Trevor actually did this. I just sat back and watched.
Shall I?
Absolutely, please.
Beautiful. So it's funny because the chef's cut is this cut, the first cut.
Yeah.
Okay, because that's the bit with little beef in there. And we can't give that to the customer because that's the bit that's always sandwiched. But we used to save those bits for the end of service. And then just sit there at the end of the evening and eat the Wellington ends. This is beautiful. I mean, absolutely beautiful.
Wow.
Whoever made this, I swear to God, I mean, look at that baby. That is beautiful.
One of my favorite restaurant memories is served a private dinner, and we had about 50 mason jars that were filled with foie gras torchon, and we took it all out, and I was instructed to scrape it all out into a large bowl. Thank you so much. And then we just took leftover biscuits, and we sat there drinking the dregs of bottles of wine and swiping biscuits and foie gras torchon.
See.
And
oh my God, we used to do a beautiful foie gras sauce with chicken wings, and then for our dinner at Harvey's with Marco, we used to eat the dregs of the sauce and the chicken wings, and that's why from an age of 19 I love chicken wings. And then this looks beautiful.
dig in.
Oh my goodness, thank you.
A little bit of red wine demi on the side, of course.
Amazing. Beef cooked beautifully. It's funny, I remember getting my mum up to the launch at the restaurant at Claridge's, and I made one of these for her, and she sent it back. I'm sat there in the kitchen, and there's like 45 chefs, and Mrs. Ramsay, table 1. I said, what? What do you mean? It's like, she's joking? She's taking the piss? She said, no, she wants it more cooked. I'm like, for fuck's sake. I don't want beef with blood in it, Gordon. I need beef with flavour. I'm like, Mum, you can't overcook a Wellington. She said, well, then don't serve it to me. I'm like, oh my God.
Michelin critics got nothing on Mrs. Ramsay, damn.
Honestly, no. And she was staying, they very kindly put her up in the penthouse suite, and she got into the suite, and the butler was knocking on the door and said, Mrs. Ramsay, can I run your bath? And she said, certainly not, I can run my own. And so she had no idea that we're trying to look after her, but that's what mums are like, right?
Yeah, I love that. I mean, the working class roots, man, you can tell it in your blood.
Mm-hmm. This is delicious. Seasoned beautifully. Oh my God. Man.
I took too big of a bite.
Cheers, man. Monkey 47. There's a gin called Gordon's that I'm not a big fan of. And so I went on that gin trail, and 47 has got the sort of tannins and the spice, and it's just an amazing way to sit and enjoy a gin and tonic. I want people to get absolutely paralytic at my funeral. I want to make sure there's cars for them all, SUVs to take them home. I don't want anyone catching the bus or the train, and I want them carried out of my funeral wake.
Gordon, that is one thing that I can absolutely guarantee you I will bring to your funeral. I will bring the paralytic drunkenness. I once showed up to a Hanukkah party with a beer bong and 6 bottles of Manischewitz, and they were gone, and that funnel was stained purple. Believe me, you.
I don't think of dying. I'm 57, I've just turned 57. I feel better, stronger than I did at 37.
But surely it's gonna come for you one day.
I mean, not in the near distant future, Josh. Do you know something I don't?
No, I know that we all struggle with mortality, and I know that some people really bury themselves in work, and they bury themselves in the shit, the pain, the suffering to distract themselves from death. I'm not saying you've been doing that.
No, I find the balance. I find the balance. My escape is either doing triathlons, and half marathons, Ironman, and then the guilty pleasure is diving, because then you are 30, 40 meters under. You've got great visibility, and you're answering to nobody. And it's the best feeling in the world. You're just hearing your breath, nice and slow, looking at the depth, checking the gauge, and then just looking for the next big shark.
So you never meditate on the idea of death. I mean, you are surrounded by it constantly with the sharks and the narcos and all that. But do you ever actually meditate on the idea of death, on what your legacy is going to be, on what the feeling of nothingness is?
No. Do you have any idea how busy I am, Josh?
I'm saying that's by design, of course.
Yeah, I know, but we find the balance.
Sure.
You have way too much time on your hands, young man.
You're right.
You need to work harder and get some more wrinkles on your face.
Sign me up to work as a commie in one of your restaurants, because I'm sick of thinking about death. I just want to grind at this point.
Listen, we're all going to die somewhere down the line. I'd like it to be a quick, painless death, but we've just extended the family, you including, and so now 2 SUVs going out to dinner and the shops. So I think
I'll call shotgun.
Just finding that balance and eating properly, because chefs have the world's worst eating habits because we graze. And any chef that would tell you that we sit down and eat dinner before we go and cook dinner is absolute bullshit.
Trash raccoons.
Yeah, but just literally trash raccoons.
A trash raccoon. You're a little raccoon roaming around the kitchen, grabbing things with your little claws, eating them over the trash.
They stink, raccoons.
Chefs stink? Are you kidding me?
No, but that's BO. That's after a hard night's sweat, right? So we graze 4 or 5 times a day, tiny bowls. And I'm a firm believer in going into service on your toes, like ballerinas, nimble, on it, fast moving, and tasting everything. Then you perfect.
Yeah.
You'd make a great chef.
Yeah, thank you. Honestly, I was choosing between going into the restaurant world and going into the media world, and had it not been for a relationship that I was in at the time, where I decided I wanted comfortability, I would have jumped into the restaurant world. And then I always wondered the alternate reality, what would have happened? What do you think would have happened if you would have been a footballer?
Yeah, I mean, that sadly got taken away from me at an early age. And then, of course, in your early 30s, you're sort of, you're out. The career's done. You've got sort of 10 to 12 years at that level. So you got to make it. But I was more worried about a girl I was seeing at the age of 19 when I just got to London. And she said, I've got you a great job, and it's working for one of the banks, and it's 7 till 3 as the head chef. I'm like, what? Corporate dining, 7 till 3? JJ, you got weekends off and 7 nights a week. Don't be a chef if you want to take that role. Don't do that.
Yeah.
Learn that craft. But I did think, do you sacrifice the relationship that you're in love with this amazing girl for your career? So you sacrifice that moment in a relationship. Otherwise, you could be running a 3-star Michelin restaurant today.
And then all I got is this show. Thanks so much for stopping now.
No, but one more question. But is that, you pinned it on the personal relationship that you couldn't sort of dedicate that time?
Through the lens of that relationship, it was a different person that I thought I wanted to be. I tried to suppress those parts of me that loved being constantly under pressure, that loved the intensity. I tried to convince myself that I was somebody who, no, I should live with balance, and that is not for everybody.
No.
I dropped out of college. I could not, once my sports eligibility was up, I couldn't bring myself to go to class. I've tried working a full desk job in 2 hours there, and it is literally physically torturous. My skin crawls. But when I'm working the line, when I'm in a weight room, when I'm doing conditioning, it's the happiest I am. My mind goes blank and I can just move. It's almost like you're in a fugue state. It feels natural.
Yeah, that's interesting, because I absolutely adore pressure.
Yeah.
And whether it's going live, whether it's cooking, an amazing event, or whether it's behind the line at a 3-star Michelin, and you're just, all of a sudden, you're conducting this orchestra of utter perfection. And there's those moments that are sort of captivating, that it doesn't get any better than this. And that sacrifice is all coming into these last 3 or 4 minutes, when it's just all coming onto that plate, and this canvas just takes on a whole new meaning. You need to be absolutely driven and semi-selfish. And that's hard for people to accept. Selfish, because you've got to get from A to B, and then B jumps very quickly to D, F, G, if you get it right.
Gordon, for your final course of the final meal of your life, we have sticky toffee pudding with a perfect vanilla ice cream cannelle on top, a little bit of edible flour, and then the complete opposite, a deep-fried Mars bar served on newspaper, aka fish wrap.
Man, honestly, I want to find out which knobhead put together deep-fried Mars bar. Just when Scotland was breaking through and becoming a sort of pillar in European cuisine, some idiot comes out with the deep-fried Mars bar. Guaranteed they were pissed as a fart. Got home one night, thought they were getting some fish fingers from the bloody fryer. It was frozen Mars bars, and they decided to coat it in some batter and deep-fried it. But this thing blew up in Scotland and became almost like a staple in the Scottish diet.
Unreal. And so you put it on your menu for your last meal out of spite.
Yeah, just to realign the Scottishness in me. But it's a crazy idea, and it's sort of like a Snickers bar. But look at that. I mean, honestly,
wow.
No.
Look at that, Gordon. Cheers, buddy.
Cheers, my man. Cheers. Disgusting. I want to find that little arsehole who put that thing together and give him a kick up the arse, because just when we're breaking through with the beautiful venison, hand-dyed scallops from west coast of Scotland, beautiful Dublin Bay prawns, amazing whiskey, this fucking idiot puts a deep-fried Mars bar together.
Yeah.
So
watch your ass, Gordon's coming for you.
Man. This, however, the sticky toffee pudding, this reminds me of Mum. A prolific, amazing chef. It's funny, isn't it, when you grow up and you watch Mum have 3 jobs and you think, Mum, why are you working so hard? And you're not actually doing the same, because it's in your DNA.
Yeah.
And Christmas Day morning, we wake up, we want to open a couple of presents that we've got, and Mum's not finished work. But this was the one go-to dessert that she always did for our special birthdays. Incredible. And it is incredible. Beautiful.
Yeah, we did a little bit of Scotch in the caramel. I have heard you like to reconnect with your Scottish roots through the fine delicacies, so we put some Scotch in the caramel.
Delicious. I mean, it's just absolute heaven. I think I would like to put this dessert inside that coffin.
The ancient Egyptians used to do that for good luck.
Is that right? There you go.
Talking about your mom making this dish, you now, of course, are raising a very large family of your own. I think you can take a lot of good lessons from bad behaviors. What did you learn from your dad about how not to father?
That dreadful word, when they turn around and say, I told you so. And so that's the condescending, bullshit that you never want to tell your kids. 6 amazing kids, we're incredibly lucky. And all I've taught our children is that, find your passion, find your way. Don't do with fame, fortune, money. They all work. Meg, our eldest, is an amazing police officer. Jack is in the Royal Marines, and so he's, dedicating his life to the Marines. Tilly's at university. Holly's into fashion. Oscar's playing Havoc in the nativity play. He had 2 words to say in his play, and he balls them up because he spotted his mum, and then obviously Jess is months old. But I always say, the earlier you tell me, the more I can do. And so, unlike my father, I didn't have a close relationship with him. He was always the condescending type, I told you so. Kids want to hear, what have we got? How do we salvage? And what's the comeback? And honestly, that comeback for me has been my life, because that journey upwards has been one of the most exciting journeys, because I still feel like I'm coming back from that moment. And every time I teach these kids a lesson, and we're allowed to make tiny mistakes, but just don't repeat that mistake.
That's beautiful. It's like simultaneously having that empathy, but also that drive to push them. Because if you wanted to, you could have raised, I think there's a British slang, toffee-nosed.
Yeah.
Toffee-nosed little kids.
Yeah, little shits. Yeah. No. It's funny, isn't it, when we used to start traveling and, sitting in amazing business or first class, I'd always say to them, think what you could do with the money when you get there.
Yeah.
We're all getting on together. We're all bloody getting off. And if you think we're paying, $10,000 for a business class ticket because you're a Ramsay, forget it. Turn right. Every time they got their allowance every month, a couple of $100, if they saved that up across the 12-month period, I would match that at Christmas for them. And they've got to stay true to their form by saving every dollar. And so when you start that practice at sort of 10, 11, 12, 13, they got their part-time jobs, all of a sudden their minds are focused about their career paths. And so, that was the opposite the way that I grew up. And so they are super disciplined and they are on it, man.
I'm also curious what you learned about the strength of your family from the death of your unborn son who passed at 20 weeks in the womb.
Yeah, that was awful. That kind of situation was devastating. And it was incredibly moving to see the tightness. And then, any woman having to experience that was just awful. But what it did do, it made us incredibly closer. And so we'd never have Oscar had we not lost, Rocky. And so now with Jesse, and so, there's positivity coming out there. But it's just amazing how you bond. That room, we're closed. It was no interruptions, and we just had that moment together as a family. And those moments are powerful because it unites. And it was a touching moment. And every time someone meets our kids, they always say, my God, I can't believe they're so normal. Yeah, they are beyond normal, humble. And I suppose the only worry I've got is that no one wants to cook for a living. I think I've scared the shit out of them all. So it's like...
Wait, hold on. What if you had another son who, say, just expressed regret about maybe not cooking for a living?
So there you go. But Tilly's sort
Does
of...
your hair go like that?
Tilly's getting there, but they have an amazing appreciation for life and respect. But when they go to the restaurants without us, they are super polite. And I was desperate to realign myself with a family that was the opposite to what I grew up with. And so everything I saw and witnessed, I did the opposite with my family.
Say when death finally does come knocking on your door, know that all 7 of your children stand on their own 2 feet. Gordon, you ready to get in the lightning round?
Yes, what is that lightning round? What is that?
I just like to ask you a couple questions.
Yeah,
It'll go fast. Other than me, who's the one person, dead or alive, you'd share your actual last meal with?
Oh God, that's a tough one. It's got to be my wife.
What song do you want played at your funeral?
It's got to be Adele, Set Fire to the Rain, because that's been my life. It's hot, boisterous, and bloody exciting.
And I'm there, rip shit off gin. Who's the one footballer you wish you could have slide tackled?
I did it once in the back garden on New Year's Eve one night with David. I would say David Beckham.
Love that. What's your biggest fear?
My biggest fear is getting old.
How many Jamie Olivers could you beat in a fight? If you need clarifying answers on that, I can tell you. But how many Jamie Olivers could you beat in a fight?
Oh, I'd give him a 9-round head start and tie both hands behind my back. I'm not worried about him.
What's your greatest regret in life?
My greatest regret in life, not doing a sub 10-hour Ironman.
There's still time.
Mate, there is. There is.
Which Burbank parking lot would you want to wrestle me in? Who wrote that question? Who wrote that question? That wasn't me. You got your choice. Bob's Big Boy, 7-Eleven, Pinocchio's Italian Deli. You choose. I'm there.
I would do it on the count of In-N-Out Burger. Yeah, with a double each side.
Gordon, thank you so much, man. Incredible conversation.
Likewise. Thanks, bud.
Of course, and everybody, make sure to check out Gordon's YouTube channel. Check out this new show, Idiot Sandwich. I'm on there cooking sandwiches with Rhett and Lincoln. What a hell of a time that was. Before then, Gordon, if you want to say your last words to that camera right there,
My God, my last words. I've eaten so much food, honestly. Right now, I need a big shit.
The man, the chef, the poet, the TV icon, Gordon Ramsay, everybody. Thank you again so much, man. This is incredible.
Good to see you.
Likewise, good job.
Everybody, thank you so much for stopping by.
Thanks,
You know
guys,
the
the
deal.
crew, and really well done, everybody, honestly.
Face the reality of mortality head on with our new Last Meals hat and tee, available now at mythical.com.